Dogfighting in Battlefield 6 can be complicated. When push comes to shove, most people panic and make mistakes. This is partially DICE's fault, as they don't offer any good guides or advice, and the mechanics are not well explained. You're left to fend for yourself. I've been playing Battlefield 6 for a while now, and I've gotten a pretty good grasp of how dogfighting works. And in this video, I'm going to explain how to gain total air superiority over your enemy within a Battlefield match. Now before I begin, this video is a part 2. Now to summarise the key points from my last video that will help in today's video, in the attack jet, to turn fast, you brake while turning and you make sure you don't stall when you do. And to turn fast in the stealth jet, you use thrust vector tapping. Now if you have no idea what I'm talking about, then I highly suggest you go and check my last video out, because today I'm going to be going over more advanced techniques, and if you haven't really got the basics down, then you may struggle to understand what I'm going on about in this video. Anyways, moving on, the first manoeuvre I would like to talk about is the high yo-yo manoeuvre. This manoeuvre is a Battlefield classic. It works across many Battlefield games. If you can learn this, you will win every dogfight fairly quickly against any amateur pilot. Now this manoeuvre works best just after you've merged with your opponent, when you're out of their line of sight so that they can't match what you're trying to do. So here's an example of this in practice. You can see here I'm being chased by an enemy jet. Now I stay low here because I've already used my flares and I'm just conscious about the enemy AA tank locking onto me. Once I merge again with him, you'll see here as soon as I've broken line of sight, I immediately change my angle and I execute the high yo-yo maneuver. And in this scenario, the enemy jet isn't using thrust vectoring and they continue on in the same path, so it's an easy kill from here. I think one thing that's worth to note here, if you suspect the enemy pilot is good and they're thrust vectoring, you need to disengage and cancel that dogfight immediately, because no matter how good you think you are, even an amateur with thrust vectoring can easily outturn you in the stealth jet, and the only wise choice to make when somebody's doing that is to disengage and go back to base. It is also worth noting that you can actually do this maneuver in the opposite way. It's called a low yo-yo instead. It can be better in most cases because you're going downwards, which allows you to press the brake button without stalling, and that means you turn faster and you turn tighter. However, most dogfights I have don't really happen at high altitudes or high enough altitudes where you can pull this off safely, so it's something to keep in mind. And generally speaking, when you're in a dogfight, you want to keep yourself adaptable and you want to feel things out. Now that comes with practice and experience, especially when it comes to turning, because as I've said in this game, the speed control doesn't really exist. You kind of just need to feel when you're turning faster. And it's the same thing with dogfights. You just know when you're doing something right. The next thing to talk about is loop cutting. Now loop cutting is a lot harder to explain, and it's a lot harder to tell if you're actually doing it correctly or not. The simplest way to think about it is imagine your enemy and imagine you're trying to crash into them. So for example, I'm going to play this clip, I'm not going to speak over any of it, and I want you to think about what I've done right here and perhaps some things that could be changed. Okay, so the first thing that I've very clearly done wrong is I've given him that angle. You shouldn't give him that angle in the first place. He very easily could have killed me here, and honestly, I'm surprised he didn't. But the most important thing in a dogfight is to never give up. Now right now, my eyes are completely glued to the radar, and you can kind of see from the micro adjustments I'm making here, I'm trying to cut into his loop. Another thing when you're using your radar is when the enemy's icon stops moving, that means they've gone vertical. They could go up or down, but in this scenario, using common sense, they've most definitely gone upwards, and obviously I'm going to try and match that. So say you have a loop, right? This is your enemy's loop, Now, when they finish their loop, they're going to be around here somewhere. You're trying to predict this. You're trying to cut them off at this point where they're going to be. And the best way to think of that is, as I've said before, try to crash speech marks into your enemy without crashing into them. So what I mean by this is, instead of just following them around like this, you know, like the same way they do, try to cut into that loop by turning diagonally a little bit, just a little bit. And the best way to do that is to use your rudder while you're turning. And if you tap it just slightly, ever so slightly, just slight adjustments to try and cut into their loop and do exactly what you see here. Like I said, it's very hard to explain and it's very hard to know if you're doing correctly. But to put it a different way, the high yo-yo maneuver from earlier, think of that as just one great big loop cut. It's a very obvious one and it's not so subtle compared to this. But if you can pull it off correctly, you'll successfully cut into the enemy's loop, and it will take a couple more attempts, a couple more passes of doing this, especially against a good dogfighter who will try and match what you're trying to do, to beat them. So let's apply that logic to this scenario. Now, as I said before on the minimap, you can tell when the enemy goes vertical. Now, judging from the terrain in this area, and also by looking at the minimap, I can tell for a fact he's going vertical. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to cut him off in his vertical loop. And you can see, once I've got myself established, I basically catch him with his pants down, and from here on it's just an easy kill. So let's talk about what to do if, by some unfortunate chance, you end up with an enemy on your 6. Now, I'm not going to lie, if there's somebody behind you, it's probably already over, but there are things you can do. Now, number 1, don't dogfight them. Do not dogfight them. I repeat, do not dogfight them. If you try to turn into them when they're already behind you, you are giving them the easiest kill shot of their life, and because the time to kill in this game is so incredibly fast, you won't actually ever get a chance to even enter the dogfight, let alone actually win it. So take a look at this image. Look at how little surface area there is exposed for me to hit, and shots like these are very difficult even for great pilots to hit, especially when you start moving. And that's what I'm trying to prove here. If you turn around, you are then going to expose so much of your jet's surface area, and that shot now goes from hard to incredibly easy for anybody, not just good pilots, for literally anybody. So, how do we lose enemies on our 6? Well, the first solution is to obviously make sure they don't get there in the first place. Stay on top of the enemy air force, make sure you're in control of the skies. But if this happens and there's people behind you, find some cover and use the map to your advantage and slam on the brakes, right? Now, if you're behind cover, they can't shoot you, and if you slam on the brakes, you'll hopefully force an overshoot, as I did in this situation. And once you're behind them, it should be an easy kill. Now, disclaimer, like, if it's a good pilot, there is probably nothing you can do once they're behind you. And yeah, you could go back to the base, but the base AA in this game is not consistent and it does not help me. I have had so many situations where I am sat there begging for it to help me, and yeah, even if it does kick in and decides to help you, you are probably dead and it's probably too late. Like some stereotypical Hollywood cliche where the police and the backup arrives just after all the actions actually happened. But then, if you step foot near the enemy base, CRAM decides all of a sudden, I'm gonna be the hero now, and it decides to eviscerate you and remove you from existence. So it's really inconsistent, and I would not rely on it. Wow. Wow.
What the fuck?
Halfway across the map. And now, as usual, I'm going to wrap this video up with some generic tips and just small tiny little details that I think should be mentioned. One thing I notice a lot is people give up before they even have a chance to actually have a proper dogfight. Don't give up, right? Don't ever give up, right? If you have the chance to have a dogfight in this game, take it. It is better than just doing the alternative, which is giving your enemy a free shot and a free kill. Take the dogfight. A lot of people, they think they're losing the turn fight. They think they're losing the dogfight, so they break off. If you break off in the middle of a dogfight, chances are you're probably dead, unless you get lucky. Especially in this game with how fast the time to kill is. So don't give up unless you have to break off strategically. Now, I say this a lot when it comes to vehicles, but you're gonna have to be patient, okay? The balance in this game is f***ing god awful. Okay, it's completely miserable to fly on this game. It's not fun. It's very heavily opportunistic based. Now, I say this a lot when it comes to vehicles on Battlefield 6, but you need to be patient. The balance in this game is horrible. The mechanics in this game are horrible. The dogfighting is, like I said, non-existent. Even I think this guide is very extensive to the point where it is basically overkill. Because if you can understand this guide, and you're at the point where you wanted this guide, you are probably already good enough to beat 90% of the jet pilots out there anyway, right? But I hope this guide helps you beat the other 10%. And I hope this guide will help you in future beat the 1%. Now, as the outro to this video, I am going to play, quite honestly, the longest dogfight I've ever had on Battlefield 6. And that's not something to be proud of, by the way, guys, because it was a 2-minute clip and 1 minute of it was actually the dogfight. So go f yourself, Dice. I hope you all in the studio right now are seeing this, and I hope you all hopefully reevaluate the jet balance in this game, but I know you never will.